Welcome to the College Survival Guide, and today we are covering how to find your passion. So obviously I will be helping you figure out your passion in this video, but I'll also be covering how to remain motivated even if you don't know your passion, as well as at the end of this video, I'll be talking about how to make it easier to find your passion. Starting off though, I just wanted to say that if you have just begun college or you're about to begin college, that you shouldn't start taking classes that are your major. This is because I know personally that the major you declare at the beginning of your college career doesn't necessarily match up with the one at the end of college. So you want to make sure that you start off with just taking core classes, because you'll end up needing those no matter what, so you won't end up wasting any money. You might think that you want to experiment by taking one of those classes that are within your major, but I would recommend that you check out a book, maybe listen to some YouTube videos, or talk to someone that's already in that major about it in order to find out if you're actually interested in it and to make sure that you would enjoy it. Also, whenever you're trying to figure out your passion, you want to make sure that you go into it with the right mindset. So whenever you're looking for your passion, nothing is off the table. And that's the attitude that you need to have, because there are so many opportunities and experiences that will be presented to you throughout college. So you need to be open-minded whenever it comes to those, which will help you find your passion much sooner. It'll help you find your fashion because you'll be super chic. So if you're invited to a poetry slam, but you think that poetry is lame and that you might not enjoy yourself, then if you go, then most likely you wouldn't enjoy yourself. But if you focus on the positive aspects of it, then you'd be much more likely to enjoy yourself, which if you translate that to all the other areas that you go out and try and experience, then it'll make finding your passion so much more easier. And the last thing here is that more than one thing could be your passion. So if you find one thing that you're passionate about, you can continue to explore and try and find another thing. But if you find something that you're passionate about that is just a hobby and isn't necessarily lucrative, but you enjoy your job well enough, then as long as you have a hobby that you're passionate about, you will continue to be satisfied throughout your life. Now let's get into how to find your passion, and I'll be going over a couple different prompts, and with each prompt, I want you to pause this video for at least 15 seconds and try to think of as many things as possible with each prompt. So if Netflix comes to mind, or video games, or doing makeup, then write those down. It really doesn't matter, you just want to continue writing things down in order to get your thoughts flowing. But most people fall into one of two camps whenever it comes to people that don't know what their passion is. The first camp is people that know their passion, but aren't necessarily aware that they know their passion. So the first prompt that you want to look at is, what causes you to lose track of time, or when do you forget to check your cell phone? We are super attached to our cell phone and constantly check it throughout the day, so it takes a lot to draw our attention away from our cell phones, especially so if we don't even remember to check it. I'm gonna be honest, one of the things that makes me do this is playing video games, but I also feel the same way about having a good conversation, reading a good book, or exercising. I just completely forget about time and enjoy what I'm doing. Next, what makes you feel good about yourself whenever you do it? So this could be something altruistic like donating to charity or going and doing volunteer work, but it could also be something more personal like exercising, planning your goals, or maybe even creating music. I tend to feel pretty good about myself whenever I help someone through a problem or act as kind of a counselor for people that are having a disagreement. But there are also some small things that make me feel really good about myself, like cleaning my room. Another way that you can kind of look at this is by thinking about what makes you feel really good whenever you have to work really hard through doing it, so that the work itself is the reward. On the opposite side of the coin, what causes you to feel resistance against showing someone because you are worried about them judging you and thinking that you did poorly in that area? This can be things like dancing, music, or singing, and I know a lot of people don't necessarily want to go up and sing in front of a lot of people, but that's not necessarily because they are passionate about singing. When you're passionate about singing, then you're more likely to be worried about someone telling you that you aren't a good singer. And that's because you either put in a lot of time towards improving your singing ability, or you think that you are a good singer. But if that's the case, then you really need to expose yourself to others in order to get feedback so that you can improve in those areas, or so that you can be confirmed that you are a good singer so that you can continue to take advantage of your talent. The second camp that people tend to fall into is those that have not explored enough to find their passion. I would be more likely to fall into this camp as I spend a lot of time at home either working on these videos, reading, or playing video games. But I have been working to try and explore a little bit more and try and find new hobbies for myself. But the first thing that you want to do, and you don't necessarily need to write anything down immediately for this one, is to try and figure out a list of hobbies or any clubs that might be in your college. You can literally Google list of hobbies and one will pop up in Wikipedia that you can go through. And most colleges have either clubs or student organizations that you can look into join to try and see if you're interested in an area. I would recommend that you take these two lists and write down anything that seems interesting to you and then give it a shot. And honestly, you'll probably suck at some of these things at first, but that doesn't mean that it's not necessarily your passion, even though it'll be hard to be passionate about it whenever you are sucking. So you should just embrace the suck and you'll be much more likely to find your passion. You should then also write down a list of people that you admire or are jealous of, and then try and think of the traits that they have that you would want, or to think of some of the things that they do that you would like to do as well. And then try and find commonalities between those lists to see what you can apply to your life. Lastly, is there anything that you enjoy learning? Because if there is something you enjoy learning about, then there most likely is a career related to that that you could be passionate about as well. I enjoy learning how to improve myself, so I've taken that and then put it into this channel to help you try and improve yourself. You can take a look at your high school classes or any classes that you're in now to see if there's anything that you enjoyed learning. You might even want to hit up the Crash Course YouTube channel to see if there's anything interesting on there. Even after answering these prompts and going out and experiencing a bunch of different things, you still might not be sure what your passion is. So how exactly do you remain motivated without knowing your passion? Honestly, the best way is to try and be positive and find the joy in everything that you do. It'll be so much easier to work hard in college if you enjoy the process and see the benefits that working hard now has on your future. But we all know that it's not as simple as just being more positive. You'll have to gradually build up to being more positive. So what you can do is try to look for all the benefits in every single thing that you do, along with trying to identify all the positives that you experience throughout the day and just trying to figure out all the things that you're grateful for. And whenever you consistently do this, it will rewire your brain to become more positive. The next thing that you should do, which is something that I obviously spend a lot of time on, is trying to improve yourself. Now, it's good to be happy with yourself and where you're at, but you should never be satisfied and should always seek to improve yourself as much as possible. This will help give those that don't have a passion something to strive for and be motivated by. But if you aren't really good at knowing where to improve yourself, then you should ask yourself, what do I want people to say about me whenever I die? Now, you might have to think a little bit deeply about this one, but after you come up with the answers, then you'll have something to strive for. Lastly, you should get into the habit of working without motivation. Motivation comes and goes pretty frequently, so it's not very good to rely on it whenever it comes to getting your work done. So by building the habit of working without motivation, it'll be much easier to get through those bad times whenever you have hardly any motivation. Now, this is something that I really struggle with, as I procrastinate a lot more whenever I have no motivation to do something compared to whenever I do have motivation for it. But you want to start off with something small, like 10 minutes of doing unmotivated work, and then build it up to 15, 20, and 30 minutes until you have the ability to work on an entire project without any motivation. Not necessarily that that's what you're going for, but you'll have that luxury of being able to. But the last thing that I wanted to talk about today is how to make it easier to find your passion. And that's by managing your dopamine. Now, dopamine is the pleasure chemical that's released in our brain, and whenever it's released, we are encouraged to do the thing that we just did that caused the release of dopamine, which is also why it's responsible for addictions. Now, we used to not have that much access to releasing dopamine. So whenever you were a farmer and you went out and did work in the fields all day, then that was rewarding in itself because we were very sensitive to dopamine, so we needed a pretty small amount to be stimulated by it. However, nowadays we are constantly overwhelmed with dopamine from social media and instant messaging and those sorts of things, so we've become a lot more resistant to dopamine. This means that it requires a lot more dopamine for us to feel satisfied and content in the work that we have done. So I know it sounds cliche, but by limiting the amount of internet that you consume throughout the day, it can make it easier to find your passion because you'll be much more sensitive to dopamine, which will make your work much more satisfying. That's all that I've had for you today. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, subscribe if you haven't, and have a great day.